What is Apex? So Apex is a programming language, which is an extension of Java programming language. It is the first multi-tenant on-demand programming language for developers interested in building next generation business applications. Apex code basically sits on the same cloud as your Salesforce instance. That's why it is called the first multi-tenant on-demand programming language, because it sits right in the same instance as your Salesforce org. So where the data is exactly where your code is as well. If you talk about Java, so in Java, what used to happen is, so Java would sit on some other server or on your local machine, and then you would have SQL database somewhere on the server, and then your Java would go to that server, gets the data, come here, and then you can do whatever you want to do, and then it puts back into the server. With Apex, what Salesforce has done is it has combined these two together. So they are now together. So you don't need to worry about, as a developer, you don't need to worry about making that connection to the database every single time you're doing a transaction. So that's what an Apex code is, and trust me, that makes the life so much easier, because you don't have to worry about the database connection every single time. You have the database with you, fetch what you want to do, make changes onto that data, and push it back in the database, and it works so seamlessly. So really, as a Salesforce developer, what you just need to be worried about is that you build the logic correctly. That's all that you need to worry. And that's why we have Apex, and it does the job brilliantly. So it is a very amazing programming language. Way it is written, it is very similar to how you would write in Java. We'll just learn Apex straight away in the upcoming videos. Strongly typed basically means is that you declare the variable when you first refer to it. So that's what basically strongly typed means is. There are some languages like JavaScript which is not strongly typed, so you can do a couple of things without even declaring a variable. So let's not go into that. We'll do that when we come to JavaScript. But for Apex, it is strongly typed. It is an object-oriented programming language, and which basically defines the flow of execution, the transaction control, and all the data is binded together. So that's what Apex is. The syntax looks like Java and acts like the database stored procedures. Apex enables developers to add business logic to most system events. You can do a lot of things using Apex. You can run web services, you can do integrations, you can do triggers, etc., etc. There's a lot within Apex that which you can do, and Apex is native to Salesforce. So all of the Salesforce features which we studied in as Salesforce administrator are straight away available to Apex, because Apex sits right there. In Apex, you must end all your statements with a semicolon, the way you would do it in C++ or in Java. Same way you would do that in Apex as well. So let's talk about primitive data types. So in the previous video, we understood some basic programming concepts, and here we are going to talk about which data types Apex is going to tell us, which are available within Apex. So there are following data types which are available in Apex. So one is blob, then we have Boolean, date, datetime, decimal, double, ID, integer, long. Then we have an object, then we have string, and we have time. So a couple of them are straight away understandable, like date, datetime, integer, and time are pretty straightforward. So blob basically is when you upload any file to anywhere. So that file is actually not the way you see it. It's actually zeros and ones, and maybe some encryption is added to those zeros and ones. So that's what exactly a blob is. If you actually go and read a blob, you'll not understand. It's like garbage value. But still, when that blob is actually get converted, then you actually see your photo or your video and all of that. So that's what a blob is. Then Boolean is straight away true and false. Date is your date. Date time is date and the time associated together. Decimal value is like 123.4567. That would be your decimal. Double is just another enhanced value of storing the decimal. ID, if have gone through the Salesforce admin videos, you would have understood what an ID is. So ID is the unique key to identify a particular record in Salesforce, and that's what ID is. So that ID is also a data type in Apex, so you can easily play around with your data. Right, integer is simple, like in normal language is an integer 1, 2, 3. That could be your integer without any decimal places. Long is again a type of integer value or a decimal value, you can say. Object. So objects are all the objects that you create in Salesforce, right? So all of those objects are available in Apex straight away. So any custom object or standard object that you create in Salesforce is available in Apex. Why? Because Apex sits right in the same instance as your org. So hence it is all available. String, we spoke about string, and time is straight away time. Right. So these are the primitive data types which are available in Salesforce, in Apex, which you can use straight away. So you can just say blob A and then it will just start working, and give some value to it and it will work. Boolean A again and then say true or a false value to it. Same way you can do play around with these data types. For this video, so these are the data types. Let's go in Salesforce and create some variables of each of these data types and see how it looks like. How do you go in Salesforce and start writing your code? So this is the place where you would, when you are logged in, you would have actually seen this place a lot. Now what you do is you see this gear icon here where you go to setup as an admin. You would go into the setup, which was our favorite place there. But as a developer, this is our second favorite place. Our first place now becomes developer console. So this would be our first favorite place, and this is our second favorite place. So we go to developer console from here. So click on this and it would open a screen like this for you. Sometimes it opens up as a separate window, but you can totally bring it back here, right? I am using it in the same window. So then what you do is you go to files, you click on new and say Apex class. Don't get engrossed with what all are these options. We'll come to that in the due course, but for now, just go to new and click on Apex class. Give your Apex class a name. So we can say training session 1. Yeah, that would be your first class that you would create, right? And then here we would say, again, write public static void set my method 1. Just follow me for the time being, and I'll explain you why we are writing it in this way in the upcoming videos. But for the time being, just write it like this. So which was our first data type? So let's ignore blob for the time being because that is a little confusing. Let's go with Boolean, right? So we start our first variable as Boolean. So we type Boolean and let's say Boolean A is equal to true. Yeah. Remember we said that all of the statements must close with a semicolon. So I've added a semicolon to the end. Here, if we go back to the concept of data type and a variable, so Boolean is a data type, A is your variable, and this true is a value, right? Now, this is a way of writing, creating a variable and giving that variable a value. What I can also do is, so this is one way, then what I can also do is I can write something like this. So Boolean B, and I'm not assigning the value to B at the moment, but in the next statement, what I'm saying is, so B is equal to false. So that is another way of defining your variable and then assigning a value to that variable. So what basically is happening in this line, we are getting a memory allocated to store a Boolean value with the name of B. And then in this line, what we are doing is we are putting the value as false in that memory location. So that's what we are trying to do here. So this is a way of doing it. And this is a shorter way of writing the same thing Whether you write this or you do this, compiler will still go and do the same thing in the memory. So this is just a quicker and a faster way to write it. I've just written this for you to understand exactly what happens because I explained that concept to you earlier. But generally, you would do something like this. Also, you can just do this, and also you can just do this. Based on how you actually write your code, you might have to do this at certain places and then do this at a later in another set of statements. As we progress through, we'll see how we define our variables and how we pass them values. But for the time being, just understand that these both are the perfect, totally fine ways of writing and defining your variables. Let's move ahead. And which was the next one? Let's do an integer. So we'll do an integer. Let's call integer C and let's give it a value as 50. Same way we can do integer D and here we can do it like this. D is equal to 60. And so now if you notice this I is small here and this I is capital here. Why? And both of them are totally fine. My compiler has not given me any error. Why is that? So that is because this whole reason that in Apex is does not differentiate between the capitals and the smalls. So if here I would write A is equal to true, it would understand it totally and it will still go to the same variable. So Apex does not understand difference between a capital and a small variable name. Whereas in some other languages, you may be able to, your small a could be another variable and your capital A could be another variable. But in Apex, your small a and capital A are the same variables. How do we understand that this capital A and this A is the same Boolean variable? So if you want to test it, so just say pass an integer to it and try saving it. So how I'm saving it, I'm just saying command S on my machine and let's see, now it is giving you error. So now your compiler is giving you an error saying illegal assignment from an integer to a Boolean. And if I just do it as false here, and again, there's another way of saving it as well. So you can go to the file and click save. So that would also start saving your file here. So now that it is saved, you can see the error has gone away as well. So basically, this explains your small a and your capital A are the same variable which Apex compiler is understanding, right? So here we have defined a couple of variables and we have given them some values as well. And so let's see how do they look like. In Salesforce, we how we can see the output of our code that is being written, right? We all want to see the output of the code we have written because that's the first thing that anybody would like to do, as when I started my programming, I was very curious, whenever I used to write a line, I used to see what the output is coming and I was so curious about it. So how do we do that in Salesforce? So we write system dot debug and we give the variable name and whatever we want to write. So let's say we will call it Boolean a is equal to, and then we say a, right? You may or may not give this, but this would help us understand what exactly is coming out. What exactly is the result that we are getting, right? Then we do this again. I'm just copying and pasting, but you can write yourself. So I will say Boolean B is equal to B. So there is given this plus as well. So this is just a way of writing in here. So what it is basically doing it is taking this as a string. So this is in single quotes and it is great, like an orange out as well. But for the time being, just understand it like this. We'll understand it in upcoming videos. And then I'm going to get integer a is sorry integer was c and d. So integer was c and d. So c, and then we'll do one more here and d and d. Yeah, I'll click save again. So it has started saving here, if you can see. And now we want to run this. So how do we run this? So we go to debug here, click on open execute anonymous window. And what we do is we take our class name, which is training session 1. We put a dot here, and then we say my method 1, right? We write this, we end it with a semicolon, we say open log, and we say execute. It is sending requests, it is taking some time, but yeah. So then you would get the output. This is some system information, which sometimes you may need to understand, but for the time being, just to understand what the output is, we'll click on debug only. Just click on that icon here, that checkbox, and see. So here it is saying Boolean A is equal to false. So why it is false? Because we gave true here, but then on line 11, we also said capital A is equal to false. And this is a true example of saying capital A and small a are the same values. So Apex does not understand difference between a capital A and a small a. Then let's look at B. So Boolean B is again false. Integer C is 50 and integer D is 60. Integer C is 50, integer D is 60. So that's the output that you have got. And all your debug statements would have a debug saying that these are debug statements, and it says user debug. So this is a way of getting output in Salesforce. I know this is not a very user-friendly way of getting output. We will see further ways of getting outputs as well when we come to Lightning Web Components and other ways of getting output. But for the time being, when we are just understanding and learning Apex language, this is the way you do it. So that's your data types, and I think that's enough on the data type training session. But I would recommend that you go back in your developer console and create a couple of integer data types, couple of Boolean data types, and then try and create a data type as well. You would face some issues with that, but don't bother. And then create a string data type as well. Don't worry about the others for the time being. We'll come to that in the upcoming videos. Until then, good luck and wish you all the best in your Salesforce journey.
If you have any questions, you can join the QA session, which happens every Friday. And please drop in your comments, feedback, and any questions in the comment section, and I'll get back to you.